Hello. I'm trying a webcam, as you can see. It was recommended to me. Little unsure how I feel about being on camera, but we'll go with it. So this episode, I'm going to be reviewing a game between Fujisawa Hosai and Go Seigen. As you can tell, I'm a pretty big Go Seigen fan. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try to limit or reduce the amount of variations I show, which when I teach personally one-on-one is usually pretty high. But I'm going to try to explain kind of more in generalities and try to keep high-level concepts going, but in an easy to explain, low-level way. Yeah, and let's see how it goes. So this game I looked at a little bit earlier. The opening's fairly classical. It was played, actually, you wouldn't expect this from the opening, but it's actually played at the late 1950s, which you would think there'd be more 4-4 points, but there aren't. Part of this is Go Seigen, after his matches with Sakata Ayo, he started reverting back to the 3-4 point a little bit as black. It's kind of strange. And then Fujisawa Hosai is actually known for his, he really likes to play Mirgo. Or, not really likes to, but he would often play Mirgo for many moves. He was kind of renowned for this, and people kind of disliked him for it, but that might be one reason, and as we see, we're still in this kind of setup. So black is playing a kind of a balanced game, or normally you would see this move at p17, but in this case Go Seigen's saying he wants to emphasize the center more. This was something that came out of the new Fuseki thing, and Fujisawa Hosai is matching him, and so Go Seigen approaches high. And you can see that this relationship is a lot better than, say, if p16 was a p17, right? So there's already a big... Go Seigen's really emphasizing center already from the first few moves. Even though he started with 3-4 points, he's switching or orienting himself to emphasize the center more. And Fujisawa Hosai, as a lot of pros are, he plays c15, aiming to take territory. And Go Seigen again, he doesn't want to just back off at c14, and that's perfectly fine way to play, right? Black can back off like this and break up the left hand side, but Go Seigen wants to use the p16 stone. He wants to emphasize the center. So instead of playing that, he opts to play the avalanche variation, or offers the opportunity to play the avalanche. D18, Fujisawa is saying, nope, I'm sticking to my territorial style. I'm not going anywhere. And this is a shape point. It's necessary. And again, you can already see black is emphasizing the center region. White's, again, well, white doesn't just want to take territory. He wants to try to, like, control how black is taking the center. So he's going to force what black wants, right? If white didn't play this, say here, and black played e18, then there's some problems in the corner maybe, right? There's some aji. So white would definitely need a move here. Before he plays it, he doesn't want to allow black later to block here, because then the top side becomes very big. Not just the top and the center. So white plays here so that black's strategy, black has to really commit to playing for the center this way. Forces and then links up. Black turning here is quite painful if white doesn't play c12, right? Because it would seal white in, and white doesn't want to get sealed in. And black plays here. This is actually a very interesting move. It's really showing Go Seigen's emphasis on this playing towards the center and playing this kind of fast developing opening. Because this is a very big move because it affects the left hand side. And it definitely emphasizes the center, but it also allows white to choose the next area of play. White plays a splitting move. Normally, we would see an approach against the bottom right corner, but in this case, black has all sorts of things he can play. Black could pincer at any of these points, or just take territory. Probably black wouldn't take the territory in this case, because Go Seigen, as we see, is already emphasizing the center. So he might pincer, and the game would get very complicated from there. So instead, Fujisawa splits the right hand side, And you can see, Fujisawa's trying to make this game very slow. He's saying, okay, I'm just going to take points here, I'm going to take points there, I'm going to make a base, I'm going to even allow Go Seigen with, I think it's his next move, yeah, to take a corner enclosure, right? This was considered not so good for white before, to allow black to get 2 corner enclosures. That idea comes from before Komi, but even after Komi, it's usually considered a little bit slow, or a little bit making the game a little too easy. Because even with Komi, black still can control the pace or control the way the game flows by giving 2 corner enclosures, just because it opens up more development paths. But Fujisawa is playing the style where he's like, okay, I'm going to just make a camp here, I'm going to make a camp here, I'm slowly going to contest the center, but he's not rushing for it. Where Go Seigen's like, I'm moving fast, I'm moving to this upper left part, I'm moving to the bottom right, I want to take control very quickly overall. Right, so this is a very natural extension. It disrupts the P4 stone, it extends off this enclosure. It's kind of like a huge point. Fujisawa already saw this when he played R9, but he's saying it's okay that black gets this point. Black can move quickly, but I'm going to slowly chip away at black's position. And black is trying to kind of run ahead of white. Moves too fast or get too many points that white, even if white keeps chipping away, can't quite catch up. This pincer is very natural. Black doesn't want to allow N17 to settle easily. If it does, then the wall on the left can't really be used very well. We can think of, oh, black's like, no, I want points, right? But if white settles here, then suddenly this wall on the left is very difficult to use. Usually you want to use walls to attack something, right? So if white is settled at the top, black can't really attack. Black can't use the strength of the wall. So black plays here. Now white's N17 stone can't settle as easily. It's not so much about making points in the center here, so much as it is about making N17 uncomfortable, making it harder to settle. And since the wall is tall, right, it's a few stones up, then when white runs out, this wall will keep having an impact on limiting white's movement from N17. Okay, so white jumps. If white could try to settle in the corner or something, but again, it would ignore black's emphasis on the center. White wants to slowly chip away. White's playing a slow, patient game, but that doesn't mean that white can, just take points because he feels like it. He has to keep in mind black's strategy and trying to deny what black's trying to do. So, by jumping out, white helps his stone, and it also limits black's moves here, right? Black's next move is here, which I'll explain in a sec, but you can imagine if black played this, then later, if white plays here, this wall becomes much less effective again, because even though the scale is very tall, these stones they're fairly settled now, and they limit how much this wall can be used. Okay, so black plays this move. This is, again, keeping in mind, normally, when we attack groups, we want to try to keep up or get ahead of the group. But this doesn't mean much if white can later come back and settle the group, right? Sure, we get maybe, this is kind of thinking like third line territory, right? Because there's 2 rows here. But that's not that much when white is kind of settling where we had a corner enclosure. So instead, black wants to keep the pressure on white. Doesn't want to allow white to make a base here. That way the wall can be more effective. White Hanes, this is a natural way to kind of provoke Aji. And then J17 is the idea of okay, white could run away to the base that he made on the right, just kind of get over here. But this doesn't affect, again, this wall that black has. Black will still be able to keep pressure up, and it's not clear if white can necessarily connect up so easily if black, really tries to cut through. So instead, white plays this move. This move has different aims. It's looking at the connection to F18, is looking at these stones, but the reason it's here is to both disrupt the wall, how much can be used for, and affect the L17 stone. And it looks like, let's say all these white stones settle, this wall is very useless, and then if we look at points, sure, black has a big framework here, but white can reduce that too. So in terms of corners, these two are about the same. This is about the same as this after a reduction, so the game becomes very close still. But we can't really say that. I think everyone thinks that black's position is maybe a bit more active, so maybe it still would favor black a little. But Fujisawa is not trying to play an active game, he's trying to just kind of chip away. Okay, so black makes this exchange. You could think that later white might play d10 and start developing the left-hand side in a very big fashion, so black wants to limit to that. It's a good exchange. And then black plays g3. Even though white played j17 to mess up the wall on the left and to kind of disrupt the top, black doesn't care. Go Seigen's strategy isn't just the wall on the left, even though that's what Fujisawa is focusing on now, to chip away at black's position. Go Seigen's strategy is to move quickly across the board, right, and keep taking big points. So even though he made this wall on the left and gave white, 20 points or so in the upper left corner, this is 9, 10, okay, 15 points in the upper left corner, he doesn't mind that the wall doesn't become useful directly if white's spending these moves at the top. Black can get, these other points, right? White had to play R9 instead of the approach to affect the wall. So black got this kind of nice framework at the bottom in compensation. It's kind of this contrast between Fujisawa, again, I keep saying this, he's chipping away black's position, and Go Seigen, he's trying to outpace the rate at which Fujisawa can eat away his territory, or eat away his position. This is a very nice and very severe move. Most players would respond by wanting to Atari on one side, here or here. But if we Atari at A, then this stone at C11 becomes very meaningless, and it actually shortens the liberties of this group, which kind of leaves some bad aji for black later. So in the game, black plays E10. I want to quickly say why B is not good. If black plays here, white connects. But then black still has to come back, and there are so many cutting points, right? There's so many cutting points. So this isn't very good for white either. Black, again, is in keeping with his idea. He doesn't want to pick a fight, right? He's just trying to outpace white, get around the board faster. So he doesn't want to leave cutting points. He doesn't want to leave things he has to take care of later, so he just extends. C11 still has aji, and white has to play a move, so white extends too. But as we'll see later in the game, C11, even though black is kind of throwing it away right now, still has a lot of potential without making the Atari exchanges. And also by not making the Atari exchanges again, these stones here have an extra liberty that helps reduce the bad aji. So black hanes, again making use of the C11 stone to an extent. White forces, and then cuts, right? In a way, we could think that black has shifted where the cut is. He's delayed it and gotten some extra liberties on this group. But this cut is Fujisawa's way of, again, trying to capitalize on black's weaknesses. Chip away the position. Force black saying, hey, you can't just run away. You gotta deal with what I'm, playing. But Go Seigen's very good at making sabaki and managing all his weaknesses, and we'll see that in the next few moves. Black extends, right? If black just takes care of his group, something like here. Actually, it's kind of hard to find a move. Well, okay, something like this is clearly fine, or this maybe, but then white will be like, oh, thank you very much, I have almost the whole left-hand side, I'm breaking up your frameworks, and I'll probably invade this bottom part next, and you'll have no territory. Even if you make something in the bottom, it's still a very close game, so if I invade it or reduce it, white's doing pretty good. So black can't afford that. Oops, not there. And put comes out. White, helps his weak stone. And then black, this is a knight's move. It's a typical shape for making sabaki. You're leaving the cutting points, but black is giving way for some... if black runs out normally, then sure, black can get out, but the shape is very heavy, and it's hard to do anything with the group other than just run away. So black wants to move faster, and so plays a knight's move instead of the kosumi. And by doing this, black leaves more options, and the weaknesses that he leaves behind actually become, in a way, strengths, ways that black can change the position. Oops, I do not want to close. Okay, so white makes an empty triangle to cut. If black blocks, then white's like, oh, thank you, I still take the whole left-hand side. Black can't really do too much here. You can Atari, and white's like, oh, okay. Well, thank you for all these points, you still have to come back, and then white's like, oh, broken shape. Get out. Take corner. And these stones in the center are splitting right through black's, two positions, and there's still some weaknesses here. It's not very good, right? So black plays this peep. If white connects, then black can block. And white's like insisting, right? It's like, oh, I really want, this side. But black's like, okay, I'll just take the side. Whoops, not there. You can have my 2 stones. And now your corner is hurt. I'm making points where you were going to make points. And your center group, doesn't have 2 eyes. It might have 1 eye if your next move is here. And then I do something in the corner. Right? And you maybe even if you live, then I attack this group. And you can see that, like, one critical thing here is Go Seigen is still making use of the thickness he built up in the upper left. It has a little bit worse aji now because there's cutting points at these 2 points, but it's still a fairly strong group. So if it was something that came up like this, assuming the bottom left doesn't die and white doesn't resign right away, black can still use his group to attack, right? He's retaining the value of his fast-oriented play. Okay, so white doesn't connect, clearly. But just says, okay, I'm going to take these 2 stones. I'll manage the bottom left somehow. The value of F9 peeping into the center will be enough. That's what white's saying. White is saying, my empty triangle is an empty triangle, but it doesn't matter. F9, peeping into the center, disrupts the black wall enough, helps my stones, that are scattered over here on a large scale. I'll manage the bottom left somehow. And I'll just take my points, break out into the center. And black's like, okay, natural follow-up, and cut. So this is all read by Fujisawa already, I'm pretty sure. And white plays here. Black hanes. Black is aiming at making use of the aji with these 2 stones. I don't want to get too much into the reading because there's a lot of variations. And I want to make this game accessible to all levels to understand and not get boring. So I'm just going to say, most of this is forced, right? Black has a choice here. Black has Atari, but even if you Atari, it doesn't really help you. And you can run, but then your corner still has some problems. Or white could sacrifice it. Probably white wouldn't sacrifice it. Probably white would manage it somehow. Oh, maybe even here. And if black breaks through... Yeah, maybe like this, because black has to connect. Nope, that doesn't work. Not quite sure. Okay, actually I should probably stop and read before I just keep clicking variations. Okay, maybe if black turns, white will just extend. Black can take this in gote, but again, white took the whole left-hand side. This corner is, it's pretty big, but white took the whole left-hand side. So the compensation is probably, roughly close, but F9 breaking into the center is really huge because it diminishes the value of this wall. And you can even start to see white might try to attack this on a large scale. And it's not like black's position has no weaknesses either, and white can still play this endgame later, which is fairly nice. So it's not bad for white at all. So black plays this Hane. And there's a lot of deep reading in this move that we will see in a bit. White cuts. White has choices, but this is really the only choice. Ataris, extends, Ataris. So black could extend, right? And then white would play here, and then these two stones can't go anywhere. It's kind of clear. So black cuts, right? Cuts off these stones. And it looks like, oh, well, it's kind of similar to the other variation. Black just gave up the whole left-hand side. Not so great. White plays some forcing moves. You know, white's probing for weaknesses. But this is interesting. Black doesn't block, right? If black blocks, it's total terrible, right? Atari, double Atari, and black cries. Instead, black extends here, forcing once. And then black blocks. White takes the two stones, and black doesn't defend the other double Atari. Black plays here. He's starting a capturing race. A capturing race that is very complicated, but also very... The sequence is very long to read, but the sequence itself doesn't have a lot of options, so it's kind of forced. White plays this move. It's a very good Tesuji. If white doesn't play this move, and black plays b9, black will have more liberties than the corner. So then black would kill the corner. So white can't let that happen. White throws in, and then plays here. This move is incredibly key. This move sets up this exchange, and we'll see how this makes use of the C11 Aji in this whole capturing race. Black, right now, decides to cut here. So Go Seigen's saying, okay, I set up a plan on the left. White could spend another move, right, to get rid of all the bad Aji on the left, but then if you look at the whole board, white has only made territory on the left, and black has a big position at the bottom and the upper right corner, and black will get the next move at the top, right? Black might say, oh, okay, make myself solid. Now, this stone is almost isolated. Oops. Right? These are floating. This is still kind of attackable. So, white can't afford to clean up the Aji on the left. Black is sticking with his fast-paced game plan. White connects here to make more Aji for the bottom left corner, basically to help in the semi-eye the fight here. White can't clean up the Aji here directly because it'll be too slow, right? Excuse me, that's kind of what I just said. But white can attack this group. If this group dies, then who cares about this stuff over here? You know, this is huge, and by attacking this, white can help the stones here, right? That's kind of the natural way to play, and it's keeping in with white's slow-paced chipping away style. White is like, oh, I have some stones here. Black has a weak group. I'm just going to deal with the immediate situation, slowly chip away. This thing connects, and of course, black can't connect here or play a normal defense because then black gets surrounded and it's too slow. So black counterattacks, right? Splitting the two white stones, or the two groups. The idea is that if white tries to move out with J17, it'll naturally hurt the other two stones. So black is it's just a typical good sequence or idea. And really white has no real options here. If white plays something, loose to get out with these, then black will cut off the top stone, secure his group, and it's kind of similar. White still has to deal with the Aji on the left. And the territory at the top is quite big. Quite big. So white is forced to cut and fight because black didn't really give him a choice. And here it looks like black is throwing away these stones. Right? White had the chance to cut and then play something like this to capture these. Except that there's a very big problem. Well, first, actually, what am I doing? It's a kind of big problem. Their Aji on the left leads to a Ko. This shape has a lot of Ko threats. And we'll see the Ko later, but it's important. So white, of course, after black makes this exchange, knows there's a Ko on the left. But it's very important for white to not make the game too complicated. In a way, white's play is held back by the potential of a Ko, right? And this Ko would be huge. It disrupts the whole left side and the corner. So white is actually in a way restrained in terms of speed and in terms of how aggressive white can be. Because if white tries to go on for an all-out attack across the board, black's like, oh, I have a Ko, and this Ko kills half, not kills, but it removes all the territory on the left. So because of that, white's play is restrained in a sense. White can't go all out. So white tries to play kind of in a surrounding the whole group style and cuts, and then black activates the Aji here. This is similar. Actually, I guess it's the same thing. White plays this one to test black. Black connect, and then white connects. And it's surrounding the whole thing. Black doesn't want to let white surround the whole thing, so that's fine, but then white cuts these two off. And this is the Aji that the whole game has been hinging upon for the past maybe 20 moves, this cut. So of course white can extend. If white takes, then it's problematic because you get this Ko, right? And if black lives here, then this corner dies, and almost game over. Because if we look at the board, even if white captures this, right, in one more move, not even one more move necessarily, there's still some Aji, but even if white captures this, it's about the same size as the corner, but then black has this huge moy at the bottom, and this corner, and potentially a bunch of points at the top. And white gets this group, and a little bit at the upper left, not quite enough to compete. So white extends, black connects, white plays here, black, and now it looks like it's settled, and who has won this fight? Well, white plays here, and black tenukis. If black connects, white plays here, black connects, white hane, black, white, black, white, black, oh, black loses. Why did black play all those moves on the left then? Oh, I know why. Because black won't connect. In the future, black will just play here, white takes, and then now black will extend and fight this super long Ko. So basically black makes a Ko threat. Here. Actually, probably black will play on the large scale here. And white, responds, black comes back. Then white's like, oh, I have to do this. Okay. Then black connects. If white goes from the long way around, then loses the Ko. Right? Easy. So white has to basically fight this Ko now. Similarly, white could, play something here. Actually, there's not really any other move. There's a Ko. But even before the Ko starts, black attacks this group. Black is saying, you can end it, right? Black could play here. And then, this is also kind of interesting. So let's say white plays a Ko, black fault, in this shape, black will probably just capture. But let's say black makes a threat. White answers, black comes back. Then white doesn't have a way to resolve this Ko right away. White can play here. Then black just keeps extending, and the Ko keeps going, And the Ko keeps going. So there's, even if black doesn't answer, this Ko is very difficult to resolve. Yeah, it's just very difficult for white to resolve. White could, of course, resolve the Ko by Atari, and then it's still difficult. Sorry. Black will just keep extending almost to the corner. If it's like this, then white plays here. Then Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really stupid right now. I blame Christmas dinner. I was thinking when I was looking at this earlier that white would have to go all the way to the corner and then black gets an extra move, but actually white can just play here, and then black takes back and here. Okay, so ignore half the thing I just said. But there's a ko here. Black doesn't want to play the ko right away. Black wants to create a position in the upper side where the ko threat, since in the ko, black gets to make the first threat. He wants the threat to be as valuable as possible, right? As big as possible. And right now the threat, this could be a threat, right? And then white takes, and then black comes here. It's connecting his groups. It's not really that important. But black could be saying, okay, I'm helping these stones on the left, and I'm looking to surround these on a large scale, right? If black somehow makes, a giant thing here, with the bottom side, that's more than enough compensation for the left. So white wants to fight, wants to make use of this, but black gets this vital point, and now black is alive on this part. White is looking to say, oh, well, I'm cutting your stone off, and there's still Koaji on the left, remember? This move makes life. These moves are making the most out of these. These moves have more value right now as forcing moves because black has not made life yet. And then once they're played, black makes life. White captures, black captures. Black can make an eye here and here. The second one is maybe not so obvious. So if black plays here, white plays here, black plays here. Oh, wait, am I missing a move? No? Okay, so here, and then black can just run. If white insists on splitting, then white dies. White can run, black runs. Still insisting on splitting doesn't really work, so black gets out. And white is split into 3 groups, or 2, almost 3 groups, and there's a ko on the left. In a way, it feels like white's slow play strategy, even at this point, has fallen apart. White planned to chip away at black, but in a way, because white was trying to chip so much, black split white apart, and it's very difficult for white to play from here. White peeps to make shape, settle this group somehow. Settle the dumpling that is here. But black, Go Seigen is very good at this. He just cuts white apart. He's like, nope, no forcing moves for you. That's an overplay. And white wants to keep this stone connected, because if white, jumps here, then this is a fairly big corner, and this is still not quite alive. Or quite not dead yet, right? You can't really seal it in one move. Although, and the thing is, let's say you do seal, you force here first, then black lives. Then you try to attack this, then black starts this ko by connecting, right? It's like kind of difficult to manage everything. Am I really that tired? This isn't a ko. Oh, it's not a ko. Oh, but even if all this happens, it opens up ko threats for when white takes this stone. So if it's like this, and later it's like this, and then black plays here. Black can approach, black has a take, and this ko happens, then black's like, oh, I'll give you that side. That's enough. And once black runs out, the bottom is getting big, and these are still not settled. They still have all sorts of aji and cutting points here. So white is still restrained by that ko. Black connects, white connects, black pushes, and white is saying, okay, I'm going to try to settle this group in one move. So there's no aji, but black forcing moves and comes out. White is basically, this is basically game over. the ko on the left, the weak group in the center, black's huge framework at the bottom. So in terms of points, let's say the left-hand side dies, right? So that white has points. The bottom and the left are fairly close in terms of points. You can think about it, it's like, oh, whole board on the bottom, whole board on the left. And maybe a little bit corner, bigger corner, bigger corner. Everything else is fairly close-ish. White has a little bit-ish here. Black has a little bit kind of at the top. But then white has burdens, right? White has this ko to worry about. White has a weak group to worry about. And it's not clear how white will reduce the bottom. And it's definitely almost impossible to reduce if you have a weak group that you also have to look out for. So even though the game is close in terms of points, Go Seigen has outmaneuvered Fujisawa. And at this point, I think this is a resignation type of move. Fujisawa is saying, if I play the correct move, which is to defend here, then black will just take points, and there's not enough for white to catch up with. Instead, white tries to gain a little bit more, and then Go Seigen ends the game. Right? This top group dies. And we can still see the left-hand side is ko. Whoops. If black starts, you know, like this. So connect. Haunted reduces this by 1 liberty. Take. Black can approach. Black goes here, then white takes. And, you know, even having to capture this is bad enough, but just the fact that black gets start a ko really restrains white's play overall. Okay, so the major themes of this game, to recap: in the beginning, black is playing a fast-paced strategy. White is playing to chip away and just slowly, you know, fill in all the cracks of black's fast-paced strategy. Black emphasizing the center from the start, this move, and p16. White plays a splitting move to account for the upper left, even though giving black 2 corners is very big. Black says, okay, I get value out of the upper left by just taking the corner and expanding. It's kind of like, I can see why Fujisawa played R9, but there's a reason why you generally don't see wedges against this kind of formation, because it kind of just gives too much development potential and too many options to black. So black is Teromari. R3 is a huge point. Nothing really compares to it on this board because it disrupts. It's the perfect extension from the bottom right corner and the perfect extension from the bottom left corner, but black got it first, so it's really, really big. Black wants to disrupt the top side now. Black, you know, black's playing a fast-paced strategy, and that means no territory. That means he has to be able to attack or make use of his he has to make use of his groups that in a non-territorial way, which is usually to attack or to constrain your opponent's movements, like the R9 stone. So black attacks. Black makes white unable to settle easily. White's making sabaki and is looking to diminish the value of the top, which is black's like, okay, you diminish the value of the top. I won't play at the top. Play on the bottom side. This is a very severe move. White's like, you didn't play at the top, now I'm going to attack. But black's kind of saying, it's okay, I'll manage the attack. Black makes sabaki here, and then white makes a play to gain control of the left-hand side. And white does gain control of the left-hand side, but with very, very bad aji. And aji makes all the difference. If there was no ko here later, then it would be totally fine. But since there is a ko, it is impossible for white to keep playing on the rest of the board, because white owes a move to get rid of the aji, but white doesn't have time to do it. White tries to make the best of a bad situation by attacking, but black just splits white. He's like, oh, well, you know, I have a ko, you owe a move. You can't really take these. White's forced to fight, and then black starts the ko, or sets up the ko. We never actually see the ko, but you see the setup for it, and then black's like, okay, probing time, fast-paced strategy. I'm helping this group a little bit. I'm aiming to swallow the top side. I'm helping my top group. I'm making code threats for the left. All the while, black has managed to make a big amount of points at the bottom. White is fighting. White's like, okay, I want to make this cut available. I'm trying to eat these on a large scale. These. But, doesn't really work out because black manages to live pretty simply. Black plays some forcing moves before living. And then white's like, okay, I need to settle and I need to like keep pace with black. White already feels behind, and white is fairly far behind at this point. But he's trying to do too much. Black's like, nope, decisive blow. You're trying to, you're playing slow, I was playing fast. You try to switch gears, I'm gonna kill you. And that's what black does. Black kills white. Okay, I hope the game was instructive, useful, and I tried to stay away from my typical lots of variations. I know I showed some variations, but lots of variations, and I try to use more general terms. And so I hope that would kind of make it more interesting to watch, and kind of give more personality to the style that's being shown. Because I feel like this kind of game, which is kind of fighting oriented, if I were a single-digit Q player maybe, I would say, oh, there's a lot of fighting, it's really complicated, and then someone wins, basically. But I feel like there's a consistent theme throughout this game that can be seen, so I just wanted to sort of bring that up. I thought it was a really cool game, and thank you for watching.